Welcome back to Central Colorado Ballistics. My name is Wally. Today we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most iconic handgun cartridges ever created, the 44 Magnum. And I want to be clear right up front, this is not just a movie cartridge, and it's not just about the most powerful handgun in the world. This is a story of why the 44 Magnum was created, what problem it was actually meant to solve, how it evolved, and whether it still makes sense today, especially in a world that now includes the 454, the 460 Magnum, and the 500 Magnum. Because when you strip away the mythology, the 44 Magnum occupies a very interesting and a very misunderstood place in firearm history. The 44 Magnum didn't come out of nowhere. Before we can really understand it, we need to step back and talk about the 44 caliber itself, because it didn't begin as a cartridge and it didn't begin with modern measurements. The idea of a 44 caliber goes back to the black powder era, long before the metallic cartridge ever existed. At that time, calibers weren't precise specifications. They were approximate bore sizes, shaped caliber tooling, round lead balls, and practical balance between power and recoil. In the 1700s and early 1800s, a bore around 44 inches hit the sweet spot. Large enough to deliver meaningful stopping power with black powder, but still controllable and efficient in terms of lead and powder. As firearms evolved into percussion revolvers, the 44 designation carried over. But this is where the modern confusion begins. Early 44 caliber revolvers, like the Colt 1860 Army, didn't actually fire .44 inch projectiles. They used round balls closer to .454 inches in diameter. The .44 label referred to the bore between the lands, not the groove diameter, and the oversized ball was shaved on loading to create a tight gas seal. When metallic cartridges arrived in the mid-1800s, manufacturers kept these familiar caliber names. Early rounds like the 44 Henry, followed later by the 44 Russian, continued the lineage even as the bullet diameters became more standardized and pressure limits more clearly defined. By the time the 44 Special was introduced in 1907, the caliber had finally settled into a modern form. A .429 inch bullet, moderated pressures, and a reputation for excellent accuracy and controllability. And that cartridge, the 44 Special, is where the direct path to the 44 Magnum begins. For decades, the 44 Special was respected but conservative in its factory loads. But experienced shooters and hand loaders quickly realized something important. It had unused potential. In the 1940s and 1950s, figures like Elmer Keith began pushing the 44 Special beyond standard pressures, carefully and deliberately in strong revolvers. These weren't reckless experiments. They were calculated attempts to create a handgun cartridge capable of deeper penetration, flatter trajectories, ethical takedown performance on medium to large game. Eventually, Smith & Wesson and Remington took notice. In 1955, the 44 Remington Magnum was officially introduced alongside Smith & Wesson's Model 29. This wasn't designed as a duty cartridge. It wasn't meant for concealed carry. It was designed to answer a single, focused question. How much practical power can you harness from a handgun? Despite modern assumptions, the 44 Magnum was not created for self-defense or law enforcement. Its intended roles were handgun hunting, long-range silhouette shooting, woods defense against large animals, and for experienced shooters who want a maximum ballistic performance from a revolver. This was a cartridge meant to bridge the gap between traditional service handguns and lightweight rifle cartridges. It gave hunters a legitimate alternative to carrying a long gun, especially in dense terrain. And importantly, it was designed around revolvers, not semi-autos. Revolvers could safely handle high pressures, heavy bullets, long overall cartridge lengths. The .44 Magnum was unapologetically specialized. One of the biggest strengths of the .44 Magnum is versatility. Bullet weights commonly range from 180 grains, 200 grains, 240 grains, the classic standard, 270 to 300 plus grains for heavy hunting loads. You'll find soft points, hollow points, hard cast lead, monolithic copper projectiles. Velocity varies dramatically depending on the barrel length and load. Short barrels prioritize portability and recoil management. Long barrels unlock significant ballistic efficiency. And here's something many people miss. A .44 Magnum revolver can also safely fire .44 Special. That means one revolver can cover mild, controllable range loads, defensive level power, and full power hunting rounds. Few handgun cartridges offer that kind of spectrum. Most people associate .44 Magnum with revolvers, and for good reason. Revolvers handle high pressures more easily and are not dependent on recoil energy to function. They allow much heavier bullet profiles. That said, though, the .44 Magnum can work in semi-auto platforms, most notably the Desert Eagle. However, semi-autos introduce trade-offs: heavier guns, load sensitivity, reduced bullet weight flexibility. The revolver remains the natural home of the cartridge and likely always will be. So what happened when the .454 showed up? Then the .460 Magnum, then the .500 Magnum. On paper, they outperform the .44 Magnum in energy, range, penetration, but they also come with dramatically increased recoil, larger, heavier firearms, reduced shootability for most users. Here's the key point. Just because something exists doesn't mean it replaces what came before it. The .44 Magnum remains more shootable, more affordable, more versatile, more widely available. It hits a balance that many shooters never need to exceed. Yes, but not for everyone. If your goal is concealed carry, no. High capacity defense, no. Beginner shooting, absolutely not. But if your goal is handgun hunting, backcountry defense, ballistic experimentation, a deep understanding of recoil and control, then the .44 Magnum still makes perfect sense. It's powerful without being absurd, capable without being impractical, And most importantly, it rewards skill. For many people, the 44 Magnum begins and ends with Dirty Harry, the most powerful handgun in the world. The reputation helped make it famous, but it also froze it in time. The reality is more interesting. It's not the biggest, it's not the fastest, it's not the most extreme. It's the benchmark. Everything that came after it was measured against it. The 44 Magnum isn't about excess. It's about intent. It represents a moment when shooters ask, what do we actually need? Rather than, what can we push further? And that's why nearly 70 years later, it's still here. Not a relic, not as a movie prop, but as one of the most influential handgun cartridges ever created. Freedom secured, rights defended.